Captain's log supplemental. The replicators on deck 2 are still on the fritz. It was quite the party doing a kind of late 20th century food festival, but ever since we just can't get them to stop. One of the replicators just keeps putting out some kind of confectionery known as a peep. The entire mess hall is just covered in these little marshmallow things. The replicators in one of the corridors is just nothing but worms and dirt. It's not all bad news. Ensigns Kowalski and Smith seem pretty happy. Apparently, I got chocolate in Kowalski's peanut butter and peanut butter in Smith's chocolate. So at least 2 people came out on top. Anyways, hopefully we'll get it fixed by the end of the day.
Welcome to another episode of Captain's Log Supplemental. As always, I'm joined by my 2 friends and co-hosts, Stanford.
Hello.
And Chris.
Hey there.
Captain's Log Supplemental is a Star Trek rewatch podcast. Each week we cover another episode of Star Trek, marching ahead in chronological order by the star date the series started with. As a fledgling podcast, we would appreciate you taking the time to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you adjust our episodes from. Those reviews go a long way to helping us grow. So this week's episode is...
Hold on. Did you write all that down? That was fucking fantastic.
Definitely wrote all of that down.
Yeah, 100% wrote that down.
Oh, shit. It's bad. He sounds like a professional. Well, usually we're fucking this up by the numbers.
Dude, I wrote this down, and I am going to copy-paste that in every single one of these I have to kick off.
Oh, shit.
You are welcome to steal it.
No,
I do
fuck
not care.
You. No. I like to think that what I bring to this is a certain sense of I don't know what's going on.
Sure, yeah, it's that element of chaos.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yep.
So this week's episode is Enterprise, Season 1, Episode 14, Sleeping Dogs. I did not really... they've done a pretty okay job of, naming episodes up till now. I had no idea what to expect going into this, and I don't feel like it was an appropriately named episode, because the only person who wanted to let the sleeping dogs lie was T'Pol.
As usual.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very strange.
Oh, let sleeping dogs lie.
Did you not get that aphorism?
I frankly, it's not an aphorism I use, so I just kind of forgotten about it. Because I was like, that doesn't, yeah. All right, let sleeping dogs lie. Okay, all right, I got it. All right.
Yeah. This is like in Stellaris, just leave the gas giant monsters inside the gas giant. Not worth the effort.
Oh, no, that's fun. I like that set of quests.
No, there's that one quest, though, that is it's like you got this distress signal from the ship, but it's a ghost ship. Or it seems like everybody killed each other and then your science ship blows up. That's the one that fucks you every time.
Every time.
Or like you go to the deja vu dig archaeology and you're like, God damn it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, welcome to our Stellaris podcast.
Yeah. So this episode kicked off with Reed coaching Hoshi on some target practice.
Pew, pew. Which I guess they got that holographic technology working pretty good now.
Tell you what.
I thought that plasma cartridge, that little reload thing, looks kind of cool. I like how the front of the weapon kind of flips up. But it just seems very impractical.
It does, yeah. It is. It's one of those things where it is cool, but also that seems silly. Because you wouldn't want to crack the entire front of your weapon open to reload it.
No, it reminded me, I think what was it, the P90? Is that what they used in Stargate?
Yes. Yep. But the P90
it's
actually...
kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but the magazine on the P90 is not, inside. It's it's
on top. It's, weird.
Yeah, it's fed from the top using a spring feed that, goes backwards. Yeah. It's bizarre.
Yep.
Isn't it a big sleeve? It looks goofy.
It does. It's a weird gun.
Yeah.
It's a rectangle that shoots bullets.
Pretty much.
But actually, speaking of their design on these weapons, what is with future shows making it so that we don't have trigger guards on things? Those are not there for some kind of mechanical support for the weapon. It's not like, oh, in the future, we don't need trigger guards. Like, no, you could still accidentally shoot somebody. Like, you need a trigger guard.
At least that one's like in like a standard gun shape. Like the phaser is just like a button on top that you hit. Like if you drop that motherfucker, you're shooting somebody by accident.
That has definitely happened in at least one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out Starfleet has just abolished any like gun safety programs.
Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea to have your phaser be very easily mistaken as like a garage door opener.
No. Also, early communicators, like they look very similar. I don't know. Just a little tiny rectangle you hold in your hand. So Reed mentions that with this new model, all you have to do is just aim straight at the target, which it's weird that wasn't the case before.
No particle drift, which seemed weird.
Because she was talking about some kind of pistol, the EM something or other, which I'm wondering if it was like some kind of like plasma. He called it, particle drift. Sort of as like a plasma bolt kind of dealio. Like maybe that has to drift. I think his point more is that like it doesn't take time for a light-based laser to get from you to it, so you don't have to lead your target. I think that's really what he was talking about.
Right, yeah.
Maybe. Okay. They're oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I find it weird that he's like, wow, you're still below 50%. She fired 16 shots in 10 seconds at a tiny moving target. 50% is staggeringly impressive.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. The Marine Qual is like 80% of shots or something like that, but that's stationary.
Right.
And like you have as much time as you need.
Yeah, they just got higher standards in the future. What can you say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So practice ends a little early when the ship unexpectedly drops out of warp as the Enterprise approaches a Class 9 gas giant. Their sensors are kind of getting a bunch of interference because of the electromagnetics from the gas giant. Archer, for whatever reason, decided, does Class 9 just mean really big? Because T'Pol points out that we've got gas giants in our own solar system, and she wasn't particularly impressed by this, but I guess Archer, for some reason, thought that this looked cool, so they went to explore it, which totally fine. That's kind of their job out there, right? But
yeah, I don't know what the class...
It was a little odd.
I don't know what the class rankings for gas giants, like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Maybe the closer it gets to a brown dwarf, or whatever, like, protostar classification they use.
I mean, like, this one was big enough that the gassy atmosphere was, like, in orbit, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So obviously pretty fucking big.
So we swap back to Phlox and Reed. Reed's come down with a cold, which they sort of hinted at in the opening sequence there. He had a little cough. We find out that they discovered that there was a ship within the atmosphere that was just kind of idling there, and it's a shipwreck. So Reed was assigned, despite being sick, to become part of the away team to go and investigate it.
So what was the point of the cold? Like, they spent a lot of time on the cold for it to really not play in at all. I guess he was dehydrated in that one scene, but that was about it.
Yeah, but like you could have been dehydrated. Yeah. You could have been dehydrated for any reason, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I always like how these shows always are like, oh, we got all these fancy technology. There's no cure for the common cold.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
All the symptoms of the common cold are like your own immune system doing shit. Like you don't want to cure that.
Not to mention, they're also like the symptoms are often easily treatable.
100%. Like, too bad we don't have Sudafed in the future.
Right. There's no cure for the common cold because, like, there's not worth prescribing, like, antibiotics for or anything. Like,
it's a virus, right? So, like, that wouldn't even work. Yeah.
Right. True. Yeah.
But yes, no, that's a good point. I do not know what the point of him having a cold was aside from that one, like, slight dehydration moment.
Yep. He also couldn't smell.
Right.
But that mattered for 30 seconds tops.
Not even, like, 10 maybe.
I don't know. Maybe it was just a way of showing how small the crew was, because we really don't see any other like security team member. Now that I think about it, we haven't seen a single one since the show has started.
No, No, that can't be right. Ensign Chad has or Crewman Chad has escorted people out of places, right?
Chad.
Crewman Chad.
That beefy motherfucker who was with Sarek. What the fuck is that Vulcan's name?
Sarek.
Yeah, he was escorting Sarek back to his ship. He was like Crewman Chad. He's completely yoked. He was built like a muscular barrel.
Chadicus.
Maybe they've just decided that no one but officers.
Ensign Swole.
Hoshi winds up visiting Archer to volunteer as a translator for the away team.
So, fun fact that I noticed while watching this. This is going to be a continuity error in a hot minute. But
okay,
there are steps down to his room. It's a step and then his door. That seems like a weird decision.
Yeah, that is super weird, actually. I didn't notice that.
When you think about it, the ship still has that saucer shape. It's going to be really hard to create even decks once you get to the top of the ship. Maybe he's just on the top edge of the saucer.
Yeah, sure, we'll go with that.
I don't know what edge means at this point, so yeah, I think you're correct, Rob. But my point was that later we have a different camera angle on the front of his room, and the steps are gone. It is a different corridor outside of his room.
Interesting. Kind of a recurring theme through this episode is Hoshi's trying to put herself out there and become a more contributing member of the crew, I guess. She wants to kind of break out of the mold that she's been stuck in and really kind of dive into the whole, hey, we're out exploring space, I want to explore space thing, right? It turns out, though, T'Pol had actually already requested her for the mission. So off she goes and heads into mission prep with the rest of the away team. She still doesn't like the spacesuits they need to wear. I forgot, in an earlier episode, she wound up with claustrophobia when she put on the suit.
Oh, yeah.
She did better this time, though.
She did. Yeah, she did really well. So, Hoshi kind of brushes off the claustrophobia comment. I forget if it was either T'Pol or Reed, but one of them had mentioned it.
With the spacesuits too, because Phlox is Reed, you can go on your mission because you're not contagious inside a spacesuit. First of all, they spend a lot of time in the spacesuit locker room, and he does not have his helmet on, and nor do they. So he's just spewing contagion all over them.
It's a cold contagion.
But then
remember that for later too.
Yeah. I know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So they wind up, hopping in the little runabout. They head off towards the shipwreck. Along the way, they dive through liquid helium in an atmosphere.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know. I was gonna look up whether or not liquid helium can exist in the atmosphere of a gas giant, and then decided I wanted to save my sanity.
Yeah, I would expect it to either be in gas or maybe even a semi-solid form. I guess it could form liquid. Maybe if it was raining helium. I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest, and this is me being vulnerable right now. I actually don't have a good understanding of how gas giants work. Because are they cold or not? Because it seems like gas needs it to be hot, right?
It depends. So even within our own solar system, depending on how far out they are, they can get very cold. But they can also be very hot. Eventually, if they were to continue gathering enough mass, you could see one collapse into becoming a star at one point. I mean, it would have to be many, many more masses than even Jupiter.
Yes, the smallest brown dwarfs are about 13 Jupiters.
Right. Yeah, they need a lot of mass to be able to actually start.
Right. No, I get that part. But I don't know. It feels because Jupiter, or even a better example, Neptune. Neptune is really fucking far out there. It is really goddamn far out there. It's not hot there. So why is everything still a gas?
Well, don't forget, everything's based on the elements that are also present on the planet, and things like hydrogen and all, they may not need, they're not going to have the same specific heat as something, higher up on the periodic table. So it really also depends on the elemental makeup of the gases that like actually make up the gas giant they're a part of.
Man, I don't know about that, but gas giants are fucking weird.
Okay.
Dang old dang.
Man, fuck that shit.
Weird.
Well, like, look, even at the rocky planets, like you look at Venus and Earth, right? We have a lot of the same elements available on both, but they're in drastically different quantities. So when you look at a planet like Venus, where they've got many more greenhouse gases making up the planet's atmosphere, it's not only more dense, it's super hot, like all of the time.
Well,
and it's not just because it's closer to the sun.
It by definition, doesn't a hot atmosphere have to be more dense because of Newton's like law of gaseous pressure temperature gradient or whatever the fuck?
Thermodynamics. I don't know, man. I'm not a professional scientist.
I feel like we've spent far too much time on gas
We have
giants.
spent far too much time on
Way
gas
less than
giants.
on the Stellaris quests.
So yeah, they brush through this little pocket of liquid helium, right? Again, they kind of use it to show that Hoshi's trying to muster a little more courage than typical. She seems very gung-ho about life in general all of a sudden this episode. They wind up boarding this vessel, not knowing what it is, and it's funny because like as soon as you see it on their scanners, it's very iconic.
Yeah, it's a Klingon battlecruiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Well, it's the shape of one.
I was say it's definitely Klingon shaped.
Yes. Yeah. And Hoshi winds up seeing some writing scrawled on the wall that she identifies as Klingon, right? So the deck, it says Deck 2, Red Sector. The team decides to head toward some of the biosign signatures that they had picked up from, higher up in orbit. And they find a bunch of Klingons just unconscious at their posts.
So, fun fact about this sequence, because I was looking up stuff about the Klingon bird of prey for completely unrelated reasons. The bridge in this is the same set that they use for all the bird of prey bridges.
Oh, that's funny.
That's really cool.
So, like, this is technically
I'm
the
impressed
same
they kept
set
it.
that, like, Kirk and McCoy and Scotty were on in Star Trek 4.
That must have been fun for the actors.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So upon finding all of these Klingons here, T'Pol recommends leaving, right? Because T'Pol says that it would be an affront to Klingon morality and philosophy, which she's not wrong. But the humans, feel like they have an obligation to help these people.
Humans gonna human.
Yeah, humans gonna human. Interference cuts the away team off from Enterprise comms at that point. The one thing I had a question about here, does local communication not also use subspace?
It does not. So their little like handheld communicators and stuff do not have subspace transceivers in them. So they're all local.
Okay. So it's like radio or whatever frequencies they
yeah,
happen to be using.
Yeah, well, some whatever made up wavelength band they're using, but yeah.
Gotcha. Reed winds up getting jumped by the lone, still conscious Klingon left on the vessel.
On the ceiling. It's the perfect tactic. Like, I know how, like, with as much as we made fun of that dude going on the ceiling in the first episode, it has yet to fail.
No.
I mean, except for that time that he got
Except
shot
for
at.
him. So he must have just been new
Also-
at it. Everyone else who's used the ceiling tactic has succeeded with, like, flying colors.
Speaking of tactics, I appreciate the total lack of tactics that the away team, showed when Malcolm heard something, ran off all the fuck on his own, and the other two were like, "Oh, yeah, that's weird." Anyway,
It was so bad.
And then, of
No
course,
They
support.
clearly,
and I guess they left the key in the ignition of the shuttle pod because that bitch took that thing in a hot minute.
I know, yeah, drop Klingon just carjacks the shuttle. Back on the bridge, Archer and crew are still struggling to reach the away team when they see the little shuttle just zoom past them on the monitor. The Klingon on board is also broadcasting that their ship was attacked by Enterprise. I don't know why she would have thought that. Basically asking that any nearby Klingon warships come and take them out. They decide to grapple the shuttle. I keep forgetting that Enterprise has these things.
Yeah, they
Grapple
grappled the
gun.
shit
Always
out that
funny.
pod too.
They're always funny to see. They haul the thing back into the shuttle bay, right? And then they send another team in to go and check on the shuttle.
Yeah, well,
Just kind of.
well, they send in 2 teams, right? The security team. So there you go. There's 2 security guys. But they
okay, sure.
but also the captain and the chief engineer go down for some reason. I didn't quite understand why they were tasked with this.
Captain Doer.
Okay, Captain Doer, I kind of get because he's a dumbass. But what is Trip doing?
Trip gonna trip.
He's Captain Dumbass's sidekick. He's got to be there.
Archer gets jumped in the shuttle bay. They manage to stun the Klingon, and then Archer calls the bridge to say that he wants to take the shuttle back out and down to rescue the away team. But at that point, the Klingon vessel had sunk too far into the planet's atmosphere, getting denser and denser as it goes down, right? For the shuttle to remain safe. It just doesn't have the structural integrity to make it. So Archer decides to polarize the hull plating and take Enterprise down to pick
Yeah,
them
that'll
up.
fix it.
I have notes.
Okay.
What? Why is that better? That's not how pressure works. Like, smaller, less angular things hold up to pressure better than, like, large, round, spindly shit.
Right. I mean, that's why subs are round, right? Because it gives them more structural oomph.
Sure, they're like pill shaped. They're not shaped like a plate.
No.
And like, regardless of that, the little crappy supports holding the nacelles to the saucer, they don't know when they're going to hold up all that great against pressure. Like, why was this the best option?
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it.
Totally fine.
And I do not understand how polarizing the hull plating, like that phrase is carrying a lot of weight every time it's used.
Look, it's like reversing the polarity, okay?
Yep.
It's just kind of the go-to. I feel like Archer learned it while he was in school, and he just keeps saying it in the hopes that it means something to somebody.
They don't have any shields, so they can't shields up, so they got to polarize the hull plating.
Yeah, yep.
But like, okay.
It doesn't matter if they're not the same thing. He just needs to say it, okay?
I just don't understand what it's doing.
The away team is still trying to figure out how they can get that Klingon ship moving again, because they also know that they're falling deeper down, and they realize, like, okay, we need to be able to pull this thing back up and get into higher atmosphere here. Hoshi's helping out, reading the ship's manual, I guess, on one of the monitors. She finds notes on photon torpedoes, which Reed finds fascinating, and I forget that, like, that's still not a part of their arsenal yet. Seeing her try to piece out the meanings made me think about how important context is in languages, and we'll bring that back later for the deep dive. They wind up trying to start the engine from the bridge, but they get an error. I love Reed tries to mimic Tucker's accent.
Very poor.
God, it's so bad.
So bad.
I have a note here that said Reed's American accent is fucking awful.
No, it's wonderful. It's the best thing that happened.
I like how Hoshi goes up to one of these stations and is like barely able to figure out what the station is. She's like, I think this is like energy routing or whatever. And Reed's like, oh, okay, thanks for identifying it. And then just starts mashing buttons. Like, he hits like 14 buttons.
Listen, man, weapon guy's gonna weapon. Enterprise's hull plating starts failing, like, right after they see the probe smashed into a million pieces due to atmospheric pressure. They call the away team to let them know that they have to pull back out temporarily. Clearly, polarizing the hull was not good enough to actually get them much deeper than they already were.
Man, I thought that was going to do it, too.
Drop Klingons back in the medbay. Phlox found out that there's a neurotoxin that was introduced into the Klingons' bloodstream that seems to be causing the mass unconscious epidemic on the Klingon vessel. It sounds like she hid in the fridge, which helped slow the toxin spread down a little bit, which is hilarious and amazing.
It works on nuclear bombs, too.
Oh, good to know. The patient, however, is less than helpful. She still thinks this is all Enterprise's fault, right? Archer asks Trip then to just remind him,
Hold up.
stop helping people.
Hold up. Was that an Indiana Jones joke you just did?
Fuck, yes it was.
Which one?
The fourth one, baby.
That's the Crystal Skull, right?
Yeah. Clearly the best wink one.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. But yeah,
I forgot about that.
He's at the nuclear test site. And he's like, well, I'm going to get this refrigerator. And then it blows him across the fucking state.
Was it like were fridges made from lead at one point? Would that actually work?
Whether or not it would block the radiation, I don't know or care. The being sailed across any kind of distance in a tight little rigid structure, he would be pasted on the inside.
Oh man, they got airbags. It's fine.
Airbags.
Gosh.
So Trip recommends durotanium braces be added to the shuttle to help it hold together. What is durotanium? I've never heard of that before in Star Trek.
Durable titanium, man. Come on.
That I
real?
want to say that might actually be where the name comes from.
Okay.
It is. It's
sort of
like
plasteel.
yeah. It's like right before they got tritanium, they were doing durotanium. It's a word they've used before.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think I've ever. It's never clicked with me before.
It is one of those words that exists between science fiction universes too. Like you'll see durotanium and other stuff too.
Okay.
Like like plasteel and shit gets used in a lot of different science fictions.
Archer tells him, "Go for it. They're going to give it a shot."
I've tried one thing and it didn't work, so I'm out of ideas.
We switch back to the away team again, back on the Klingon ship. They're digging through some logs, find out that they were fighting with another vessel, and they had a breach on their hull. The captain saw his crew starting to get sick, but they couldn't figure out why in time. Hoshi finds that portside fusion injector where the whole breach was, again, on the ship's manual, because she can now expertly read Klingon, which is super impressive. And decides, like, we should go check this out, right? So the away team heads down to the Klingon version of engineering and see if they can fix it themselves. Archer and Trip have a conversation about Klingon psychology while fitting the braces to the shuttle. Meanwhile, Hoshi and T'Pol head to the Klingon mess hall after they find out Reed's gotten a little dehydrated, right? Hoshi does not appreciate Klingon cuisine.
Oh
My note was
God.
Klingon food is gross.
Well, so I have a couple of notes in here. First of all, yes, we get it. They eat gach. Like, it's okay for them to have more than just that food.
Anytime Klingon food is brought up, it's always
Every
gach.
time. Well,
actually,
they do find
like-
the live targs in the pantry.
Yes, the targs. So I was going to
Pigs
say,
in space. Sorry, I was waiting all episode to make that joke.
I do appreciate the attention to detail in the Klingon kitchen here because, like, first of all, it's very interesting that they have like the live food
Right.
like container because, like, yeah, there's like live targs that they're gonna fucking butcher. But just like the fact that they have freezers in, like, because yeah, they eat a lot of meat and stuff. They have to have freezers for everything. So there's just a lot of like good job done to like how their kitchen and larder is laid out in a way that makes sense for like the kinds of things that Klingons eat.
Yeah, it makes it feel lived in, like more believable.
Yes. Yeah, I have a note here that says, "Oh shit, live game. The Klingons are so fucking metal."
Yeah. So Hoshi's anxiety finally gets the better of her. Like, she's been, keeping up a brave face up to this point, but her and T'Pol have a nice little heart to heart. It was actually kind of cool seeing T'Pol. I don't want to say express empathy for the first time because that's not really fair, but this is the first time we see her like actively trying to help a human deal with human emotions, which was interesting. So they kind of go through the little like Vulcan hand magic and mental exercises, I guess. I find it kind of interesting that the Vulcans have been helping humanity out for 90 years, and yet the humans haven't learned like basic Vulcan meditative techniques. And I guess, like, is it just because old people are afraid of therapy? Like, I don't understand why.
Like, you'd think that they would learn those things. Like, and I'm not saying that humans need to, like, become the emotionless automatons that Vulcans are portrayed as. But, like, obviously the Vulcans are pretty good at this, so you'd think they would learn a thing or two.
Does T'Pol ever mind meld with anyone on the show? Spoiler alerts, I guess.
Undoubtedly, but I don't remember specifically.
Yeah, that's a thing later on. That's mind melding in at this point in the history is not looked upon the same as it is later on in Star Trek history.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to imagine at this point the humans are still too scared of Vulcans, but
No.
I think the Vulcans don't like it, right?
It's a Vulcan taboo at this point in history.
Remember.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
They're like afraid of it.
Gotcha. So yeah, we flip back to an exterior shot of the Klingon vessel as the hull starts to crush in like a soda can.
Yeah.
The away team is now arguing about like trying to find the ship's weapon systems, and I was like, did I miss something at the commercial break? Because we just come back, they're like, we got to find the guns, and I'm like,
no
what?
Explanation.
What? Right? There's nothing. So they explain a little later, but it was very jarring. Archer took Trip's advice on thinking about trying to think like a Klingon, I should say, and picks up on some of the lingo and decides to pay the prisoner a visit, right?
I said he was brushing up on he was running them Duolingo courses for Klingon.
Yeah, more on that later. Phlox has made an antidote to the toxin. Turns out the Klingons were poisoned by some Zarantine ale that they stole in a raiding operation. He winds up he being Archer, pulls the honor card to actually get her to finally help them, right? And convince her that they're actually here to try and help them.
By the way,
even though she does not seem appreciative.
Her name? Buka.
No. For real?
Buka is her name.
Okay. Oh boy.
One syllable short of something very different.
She doesn't want his help, which is exactly what Archer needs because he hates having consent for anything.
Oh no.
It's true.
It's like can't be a doer if everyone's letting you do it.
No. We flip back to the away team who has now found the weapons panel and has decided that blowing up torpedoes to try and rocket jump their way into a higher orbit sounds like a great idea.
Sure, yeah.
The first blast they fire off is too weak to be effective, like too far off. So naturally, they try to do two at the same time. The blast starts doing some serious structural damage to the ship. Fortunately, Klingon and Archer have now managed to find their way through the gas without actually knowing where the ship was, which was also strange.
Well, they tracked it. They tracked it based on the torpedo explosions.
No, they were surprised by the explosions.
Right. So they were going kind of loosely in the direction they thought the ship was, and then when the first set of explosions went off, they used that as a way to find where the ship was specifically.
Oh, I did not interpret it that way.
Yeah, because they're like, that sounds like weapons fire. I don't think there's anybody else down here. Let's go that way.
Sure ain't. So after that second blast also only propels them up a couple hundred meters, they decide they're just going to blast the whole payload at close range.
Shoot all the torpedoes!
Which was Hoshi's submission? The person who knows least about torpedoes?
It was incredible.
Reed and T'Pol are like, that's a bad idea. And Hoshi's like, fucking trust me, I got this shit.
Well,
she's
not
anyway.
wrong either. Right, like the options are either try it and potentially die or definitely die. So I get it, like they don't really have any other options at this point. So Archer and his new friend driving through the wreckage of all the parts that the away team blows off the ship.
Oh, yeah.
Managed to make it on board to the vessel and save everybody, which was pretty great. At that point,
they fixed the shit out that ship, man. I mean,
man, in a very short amount of time. Like,
because they knew what the problem was. They just needed her to tell them how to fix it, like where to go to fix the problem.
I mean, for the engine, yeah, but now they're missing like a ton of their hull.
Okay,
No, it's fine.
blew it all
those
off.
are unimportant pieces.
It's
You know how,
We'll
like,
just-
when you
we'll
finish
lock
a
off
project
those.
and you've got those extra pieces that you just throw away because you don't want anyone
Yeah.
to realize how badly you
Yeah,
fucked
yeah.
it up? Yeah.
Yeah,
those
Klingon
extra
ships are just
pieces.
like Legos. Totally
Like
fine to be missing
like-
a couple.
like IKEA tables. They give you some extra pieces. It's fine.
By the way, this is my favorite scene in all of this show so far, is when he calls back to the Enterprise from the Raptor. I don't know if anyone else noticed this,
Oh
but
my
he
God.
calls back to the Enterprise and he's like, Klingon Raptor, whatever the fucking name is, hailing Enterprise. And he like gives this shit-eating grin to all of the
Yeah, it
actors
does.
behind him with this like,
Yeah.
ha ha ha, did y'all see what I did? Fuck, I'm funny. And none of the actors agree with him whatsoever. They all give him, well, except for Hoshi, she's in standby mode. But the rest of the actors give him this like, the fuck is wrong with you look? It is the greatest. It's the greatest moment that's ever happened.
Yeah. Enterprise picks up 2 additional Klingon ships heading inbound, and at that point, the crew from the Enterprise decide to skedaddle. Right? They want to get off the ship at that point. The now healthy Klingon captain calls back to Enterprise and then starts threatening them with the destruction.
Fucking metal. Klingons are so fucking metal.
Like the
It's
best
like,
part
thanks
is
for
Archer,
saving us. Anyways, we're gonna fuck you up now.
Right. The best part is though, Archer just punks him down. He's like, I'm done. This was like the first time where Archer's like, all right, we tried to help you. It didn't work out. I am done.
This
I am
is
done
what
being
Captain
friendly."
Doer is made for.
Yeah, exactly. So they punk them down. The Klingon captain is just like, damn you, and then shuts off comms and just goes to throw a temper tantrum somewhere else, I guess. We get another stint of the decon room.
Sexy decon time.
No,
Man, I
no
didn't-
lotion.
I didn't. Well, they had already put the lotion on. If you noticed, they were all very glittery.
Sparkly as a stripper.
I did
So
not.
I
I did not
thought-
know Reed was packing all 6 of those under his jumper. There, he is also a good-looking gentleman.
So I couldn't tell if it was because of the lotion. I thought that this was some sort of a sauna because they all seem to enjoy this a whole lot. And when, Phlox calls to tell him like, hey, you guys are all done. Everything's good. They then proceed to ask him for just a couple
Right?
more minutes.
Yeah, I guess the decon feels pretty good. But I have a question.
What's up?
Does the captain not need to be deconned? Why? What about him? He was on the ship too.
No, he's fine. He's busy doing. Leave him alone.
Man,
It's
and
executive privilege.
I don't remember what joke they faded out on, but my note is, you fucking goddamn it.
Oh, I didn't write that down. I'm sad. now.
What was the joke?
It was something stupid as shit.
It was stupid, yeah. I don't even remember now.
Well, that does take us to the end of the episode. Either of you have anything else you'd like to add to this week's summary?
Nope. I think that wraps it.
I'm
It was a fine episode.
It was
I don't
fun. It was
Yeah,
it was
standard Star Trek.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I would try Gach at least once.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we're gonna take a little break here, and we'll be back for this week's deep dive. All right, welcome back, everybody, to this week's deep dive: language in Star Trek. So, did either of you know that Klingon was originally called Klingonese at one point? It was in the original series. It was in the Trouble with Tribbles episode, actually. One of the Klingons on board mentioned that is the name of their language, which I don't think is ever mentioned ever again. Like, everywhere else, it's just called Klingon.
I guess because Klingon is an adjective, right? Like it's a Klingon ship, so therefore it's the Klingon language. Then it just gets
Sure.
shortened to speaking Klingon. But I don't think I ever realized it was Klingonese.
Well, it's not anywhere else. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is, as far as I know, one of the only times it was ever called that.
Interesting.
Yeah, super weird. So the Klingon language has since been very fleshed out, right? there are very few other fictional languages that I feel like have gotten the treatment of that. Maybe like Sindarin, like the Elvish language from Lord of the Rings, has gotten that same level of treatment. I found out there's actually a special word for these kinds of languages. They call them constructed languages.
Conlangs, yep.
Yeah. Klingon was developed by a linguist that Paramount Pictures had hired to make the language. His name was Mark Okrand or Okrand. I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Back in the 60s?
Yeah. Back
Crazy.
for, I think it was for Undiscovered Country, like Star Trek 6, the movie.
Oh, so they gave him well, that wouldn't be the 60s then. So they got, not. Yeah, because I think Undiscovered Country was like 87, 88, somewhere in there. No, it must have been even later because I think I saw that in the theater. So like, I guess like the Klingonese that was being spoken in the original series was not, they were just, just doing whatever movies and shows usually do. They hadn't actually conlanged it yet.
Yeah, I don't think at that point it was like purpose built.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Mark goes on, he expands an entire language's worth of grammatical constructs and vocabulary to make the whole experience like as consistent as possible. Like to the point where you can actually speak a fluent conversation with someone in Klingon now. Like even other languages in the show, like even Vulcan, like they haven't gotten this level of treatment. It's pretty fascinating how much work has been put into the Klingon language. There's even a Klingon Language Institute, which is originally from Flowertown, PA, not too far from where I grew up and around where you guys were living for a while.
Flower, FLOUR, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's down 309. Yeah, I know exactly where Flowertown is.
Yeah, so it has since moved to Kentucky. I didn't find a particular town where it's located now.
It's okay. I don't think they have any actual classrooms there.
No. And totally not a sponsored plug, but you can actually, like, there's actually like a website you can go to for this, it's crazy. But sorry, go ahead.
This is funny because I actually just saw a video talking about like conlangs and being fluent in them. And the guy specifically referenced that there has only ever been one native speaker of Klingon because some like psychologist ran an experiment where his own child he only spoke Klingon to.
Oh, I was reading about this.
But so apparently that kid eventually was like, fuck this shit, it's stupid.
Yeah, he didn't like it. So the dad, the psychologist, spoke with him in Klingon, but the mom spoke in English. And eventually the kid decided he did not like it. And he just stopped speaking in it entirely.
Because it's like, oh great, I have a language I can only talk to my dorky dad with.
Yeah. I was reading, I don't know how recent this quote was from, but when they were talking with some conlang experts, there were only like 20 to 30 people in the whole world that were truly fluent in Klingon. So like you really can't speak the language very frequently to the point where it's going to be meanmeaningful.
And maybe the only language that someone was fluent in that was like not as useful as Esperanto.
Yeah. So KLI, they actually very recently ran a partnership with Duolingo. I didn't know this. You can learn Klingon on Duolingo now. Like, it's still there.
Oh, what a timely joke you made, Chris.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's interesting, too. On that KLI website, if you go there, they have published, like, famous works of art now. You can go and find the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Art of War, Little Prince, Alice in Wonderland. They've translated a whole bunch of famous works into Klingon.
So when you said famous works of art, I was like, so they took the Mona Lisa and made her a Klingon?
No.
I am not a smart person.
No. Well, I thought it was really funny because one of the quotes that got referenced was from Star Trek 6. It was where High Chancellor Gorkon remarks that you have not experienced Shakespeare until you've read him in the original Klingon. Mm-hmm. And you see Kirk, Bones, and was it Scotty in the room? They all kind of look at each other nervously and laugh about it. Like, it's super weird. All of this kind of got me thinking, though. Like, we've heard tons of different languages from tons of different alien species over the years, right? Like Vulcan, Klingon, Bajoran. One of the other things I came across that I thought was interesting, like Star Trek, they go into a lot of depth in terms of cultural growth of a lot of the species inside of their worlds, right? Vulcan, while it is quite similar to Romulan, was even purposefully altered. Part of the lore is that the Romulans went back to High Vulcan, which was like an older version of Vulcan, and then artificially aged it in another direction to help differentiate themselves so that they didn't feel like they were still Vulcan. Like they purposely wanted to become something else. And language is so intrinsic to who you are, they decided that was one thing that they had to separate themselves with. And you can just learn a lot about a people based on what the language says and doesn't say, right? Like there's a joke from Deep Space Nine where Quark is not making fun of his own language, but just kind of pointing out there's no word for crisp in Ferengi because of how humid their planet is. Like the joke being that nothing could ever actually become crisp on Ferengi because it just rains all the time, or on Ferenginar, I'm sorry. They also went on to explain that Ferengi is written in a special format. Like a lot of Earth languages are either left to right, right to left. Some of the languages, like Japanese, it's written top down, not necessarily left to right. Ferengi instead starts at like a center hexagon and then radiates outward. And like individual notes on specific topics wind up as single lines going off of the hexagon. Like it's crazy when you think about how different languages can be. I think Star Trek in particular, from like a sci-fi perspective, does a pretty good job of incorporating language into a lot of their stories too. Like in this week's episode when the crew realized, or I'm sorry, not this week's, last week's episode, where like they went out of their way to point out that, that the two different species spoke completely different languages, and Hoshi was surprised when the translator just didn't work when they were talking with another member of the species. And like, I know we had talked about it last week. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's just a different language on the same planet. But they think about those things, I guess, where most sci-fi series might not actually go that far. I lost where I was in my notes.
Well, you've got us enraptured, so you keep going.
No, I'm sorry. This was not as interactive as a topic as I'd hoped it would be.
I think that like when they care about the language, it gets complicated and more in-depth than in other things. But there are definitely episodes and times when like they do not give a flying fuck. And the language becomes silly,
Yeah. I guess
Shaka when the walls fell.
Okay. Like I have a whole rant about that particular episode.
Take it away.
Oh my God. So, okay. Since we're talking about language and we're not going to get to Next Generation for a couple years anyways. So those are the Tamarians, I think. Tamarians?
That's right. Something like that.
And this is made a big deal by people who follow Star Trek because they're like, it's so clever. It's so clever that this species only speaks in metaphor. How clever is that? I understand that the writers were trying to be very clever, and they were clever, but they didn't realize what they were doing was not actually unique. Do you know what the word Odyssey means?
Like as in the Iliad and the Odyssey?
As in like the noun Odyssey.
Is it like a journey? That's
yes.
how I've always...
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. That word did not exist until that book was written. Book, poem, whatever.
Oh, interesting.
Do you know what the word labyrinth means?
It's a maze.
That word did not exist until that Greek story was written.
Well, that's like assassin was invented by Shakespeare, right? That word didn't exist before he wrote that.
But here's the thing. The Tamarians, like Shaka when the wall fell and stuff, the idea is that they speak in metaphor to provide meaning to something, right? And it's supposed to be impossible to translate, but what they fail to understand, the writers of that episode, is that all language already does that. Okay. And I've provided you with some ancient Greek ones, but let me give you some more recent ones. Do you know what a kamikaze pilot is?
Yes, it's a suicide.
Yes.
Highly wind.
That's done twice because the term kamikaze for the Japanese was actually also a reference to something else historical that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And now we use it to mean like, oh man, it's a kamikaze mission, meaning like you're going to die. But here's an even better example. If I add the word gate at the end of something, like say,
I fucking hate that. I fucking
bridge
hate that.
gate.
So I fucking hate that so
I understand
much.
that you don't like it. That's fine. But my point is, you know exactly what I mean. And you know exactly what story I'm referencing. But even if you didn't, you would still understand that that's a scandal. That's how language works. So the universal translator should have no trouble translating the Tamarian language because it works just like every other fucking language.
I could see how it would have trouble with idioms or turns of phrase, though.
Right.
But like all words are a turn of phrase to a universal translator, right? Because the word labyrinth means nothing without the context of the Greek myth behind it or the cultural understanding of the word. So yeah, their quote unquote words might be longer because it's Shaka when the walls fell, which is, was it 1, 2, Shaka when the walls fell? That's 6 syllables, but labyrinth is already 3 syllables. Like these are not terrifyingly long words, but they are longer words. So like Shaka when the walls fell is just a word. That's just a word for, I don't even remember what this shit meant. You know, I don't know. Too many people were doing sodomy or the city or whatever.
It was failure. It was Shaka when the walls fell.
Oh, okay. The word failure. So like, I understand that the writers thought they were being clever. I do get it. But also, they didn't understand that at a fundamental level, that is the definition of language. And if the universal translator can take my word labyrinth and turn it into a word that a Klingon can understand, then it can take Shaka when the walls fell and turn it into the word failure. Because that's how the translator supposedly works.
Temba, his arms open.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because most words have to be taken with the context behind them. So the translator would have to at least appreciate that to some extent.
But like, it's so funny. Do you know where the word line comes from? Just the word line, like a straight line.
No.
It is the same root as the word linen because they used to measure things using linen lines.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't know that. I only learned that a couple of years ago. I've been speaking English for 35 years now. Like the metaphorical apocryphal background behind a word or a phrase is literally not as important as the cultural, as the vernacular and the cultural understanding of what the word means now or the phrase means now. And if the universal translator can do that for any old language, there's no reason it can't do that for the Tamarians.
Tarmac and Gelad on the ocean.
I mean, half of the idioms we use don't even make any sense in our current context. Like, I don't think anyone actually knows what the proof is in the pudding means. I believe the actual meaning behind that idiom has lost to time.
Kateo, his eyes closed.
You're just reading quotes for that episode now?
Yes, I literally looked them up, and I'm reading you phrases for the corresponding answers to your things.
This was actually a good segue, because I specifically called this episode out in my notes. But yeah, like... And I guess another good example would be pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Like everybody today talks about it through, I don't want to say that it's overly positive. Well, I guess it is technically overly positive for what it's supposed to be. Everybody looks at it and says like, no, it's great. Somebody was able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. But it was like Schrodinger's cat. It was supposed to be a joke making fun of the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps because it's impossible.
Right. Or like the phrase bad apples.
Mm-hmm.
Because the phrase was supposed to be, the full phrase is, a few bad apples ruined the bunch. But instead it's being used as like, well, no. The rest of the apples are fine. There's just a few bad apples in there. Which is that's exactly the opposite of what that phrase means.
It's like
Kateo, his eyes closed.
And again, it's fine. It's fine that those evolutions in language happen. That is completely normal and acceptable. But if the universal translator already figured that shit out, there's nothing special about the way the Tamarians do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, here's another thing about the Tamarian language that I don't think anyone ever really thought about. Because at the end of that episode, it was like, I don't remember the Tamarian's name, but at the very end of the episode, it was like so-and-so and Picard at such and such, right? That's only gonna mean something to Picard and that dude. How does that dude explain the metaphor to his friends if all he can use are these phrases that are supposedly untranslatable?
I feel like this is the same problem that Aarakocra would run into. But they can only repeat things they've heard.
Oh, that's the Kenku, yeah.
Oh, right, the Kenku.
Yeah, but they don't have a language, so that works out.
I don't know. Again, it all comes back to language requires context. And I feel like they're not creating the context themselves at that point.
Well, I mean, like, they have context. My point isn't that, like, what they're saying is meaningless, because I don't think that's true. What they're saying does have context and cultural understandings. What I am saying is that all languages do. Their language is not special.
Sorry, I meant in that one situation with Picard. Like, there's context between the two of them, so it's kind of like their own little private language, but the people at large will not understand it.
Right, and the Tamarian, if you are to take what the implication is about their language, the Tamarian has no way to explain that. Because,
so how do they explain their own history?
And that's my point. They don't, I guess. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, what are you, so like the way they do it in like if Tamarians were real people, the way they would do it is they would just use those phrases as words. Because that's what they are. They're words. Okay. So they would just speak to each other. And if you don't understand a word that you're hearing for the first time, they use other words to give you the meaning of it by giving them a definition.
Yeah, and I feel like the phrases...
There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that the writers made it sound like the Tamarians are some kind of unique, special linguistical breed when they are not. When either they are not, because all languages work the same way, or they are, and therefore their language doesn't work, period.
I think that you would have to approach it from the perspective of, like, a lot of Far Eastern languages work this way. A lot of ancient Middle Eastern languages work this way. They use symbols to explain concepts or ideas, not necessarily specifics, although they do sometimes too. But a lot of the same value that you get out of the turns of phrase that the Tamarians use, you would get those same kind of concepts. You would get the point across using kanji too, you know?
Well, and sure, like the word karate is kara and te, which is the path of the hand. Like, that's what those two bits of that word mean. And like, that sounds real fancy, but like, you know, English does the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
So like, this isn't
it doesn't
unique
make any sense.
It's not unique to the Tamarians. Like, they are not special. And it's one of those things that, like, I know I'm being a pedantic shithead, but every time anyone quotes that episode, I'm like, God damn it, it's not that special.
You're just so cranky about it.
It's because it's one of those things where, like, they could have done something very cool.
It was still a really good episode.
I'm not sure I agree. I agree because with the context of the universal translator simply doesn't work. What are we doing here? Then it's just Picard yelling things at each other for a while.
I feel like you're letting technicalities get in the way of a good episode.
Imagine if instead of phrases, they were just like vaguely Chinese sounding words, and then Picard yelled back at him in like stereotypical racist Chinese sounds.
But it wasn't, so that doesn't matter.
No, but I'm saying, like, that's what this episode basically was.
But it wasn't, though.
But it was, though.
But it wasn't, though.
God, I hate it.
I can't wait until we get
I mean, you're wrong, but that's fine. You can have your opinion.
God. So yeah, there are a lot of episodes like this where language kind of drives the means of conversation. But I feel like you're right to a point too, Stanford. It seems like the universal translator just breaks down for plot points sometimes. Like,
Although, if you want some real fucking troubling bullshit, anything with the pack lens.
We're not even there yet. Save it.
Did you say what's that?
Yeah.
No, save it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we don't get to
God.
them till TNG.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
and
I
then
know we brought
more
up-
thoroughly. There's one episode of TNG, and that's more thoroughly explored in Lower Decks, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got.
Yeah.
You guys ready to take a break and then we can come back for potpourri?
Marab, his sails unfurled.
Just
On that note-
Stanford, his teeth clenched.
Perfect. See, you got it. You're with it now.
All right. We'll be back in a couple of minutes for potpourri.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is time for the potpourri section of the episode. And today I wanted to talk about some lesser known, kind of lesser loved ships even. Maybe just something unique or not as kind of main fare as, you know, your standard Galaxy or Constitution class ships. We had the Raptor class scout ship with the Klingon ships, and it kind of gave me the idea of kind of wanting to take a look at some of these lesser known ones. So the first one I wanted to talk about is one that's actually not ever shown as a kind of in space ship, but it is the Daedalus class ship. Are either of you familiar with it?
That the science vessel?
I believe it might be, but it's not one that's actually ever. It's actually shown as like a model in several, like, you know, captain's rooms or something like that. But I don't think it's actually ever shown in like as a real ship that was out there. It is referenced actually in Next Generation. The Essex class is actually one of them, but it's honestly very ugly and unique as far as starships go for the Federation, because its kind of main, you know, area is a big globe, more or less, a big sphere with a kind of, you know, cylinder heading back towards the nacelles and kind of engineering area.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a picture of this before. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Apparently it was in the background of a Lower Decks episode.
Oh, was it? Okay. But yeah, just a super interesting ship just because of its unique design. However, horrendously ugly in my opinion.
So it looks like an early version of like the science vessel,
Right?
Like the science ship.
Mm-hmm.
Is it literally called science vessel? Ew, it is. But I'm having trouble finding a picture of that one. But like, yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I've never seen that before until you just mentioned it.
It's actually apparently loosely designed based on an early design for the original series version of the Enterprise, which is, I'm glad they went away from that.
No. A giant Federation testicle in space sounds like a great idea for a show.
So the next one I wanted to talk about was actually appeared in Voyager, and I don't know if it's ever actually like a class name is given for it, but it's the USS Equinox, which was the only other kind of star or Federation ship that was stranded in the Delta Quadrant. And once again, probably not the most attractive ship, but it is unique because the kind of the saucer section is almost like spade shaped, I would say, or like trowel shaped, more or less. It kind of has a wide flare out, and then it kind of curves around to the point at the front. But a very unique looking Federation ship, in my opinion.
Yeah. Looks kind of like the Akira class.
Well, that was actually that was another one I was going to talk about. The Akira class was pictured in the beginning of First Contact, actually. It is one of the ships that is assisting the Enterprise E in destroying that Borg cube. I actually think the Akira looks pretty slick, to be honest. Just a very interesting...
It looks like what the NX-01 is trying to be.
Yeah. Do you know what the name of that ship that was assisting the Enterprise E? The name of that ship? It's a really dumb name in my opinion.
Wait, hold on. I've got a list of the named ones, so let me see if I can figure out which one is the dumbest. Oh, there's some real bad ones in here. Is it Fire Sword or Thunderchild?
Thunderchild, baby.
God damn. So Fire Sword's not better.
No, it's really not.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are those NX designs, do those denote like warships?
NX is, I think, supposed to be like experimental.
Okay.
I think that's why
wasn't
the
Defiant
NX.
Also an NX?
Speaking of the name, though, the Thunderchild, it was apparently named for a British warship in the H.G. Wells novel The War of the Worlds, which is, of course, about repelling an alien invasion. So, well, I think that was appropriate, I suppose, for the scene.
Sure.
Yes, Rob, the Defiant was also NX. And yes, NX means, I guess, prototype or experimental. Oh, wait, hold on. NX, click. NX was a two-letter prefix first used by the United States fleets for the NX class. Ships that used... Oh, okay. Okay, it just tells you what they are. It doesn't say why. But, I think the implication was that it was a... Because, so the Air Force and the Navy and stuff, they all use different letters. So, you have the FA-18, that's the fighter/attacker, or attacker plane 18. You got the F-22s, a fighter. Back in the day, they had Ps. We don't do Ps anymore, but Ps were patrol. And then, of course, you had, the B-17, that's a bomber. But NASA experimental airplanes and stuff, they're always called X. So there's the X1, the X2, the X3, so on and so forth.
So the next one is another one that doesn't have a class definition, I don't think, but it's the USS Grisham from The Search for Spock, which I know is just one of your favorite movies. But it's kind of... It's definitely another unique shaped one because it has kind of the saucer section suspended between the two nacelles that go down, the struts go down to that lower engineering section, and that lower engineering section doesn't connect to the saucer section directly. It's super weird looking.
So that is the science vessel. That is an Oberth class ship.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, the Grissom. Yeah. Okay. There's a reason. Supposedly, whoever the model designer was thinking that, because the scientific instruments were so delicate, they needed, as much space between engineering and, the main science decks as possible. That's why it looks like that.
Interesting. So I was reading up on it, and somebody had theorized that the Cerritos from Lower Decks is kind of like a spin-off of this, because the Grisham was there to follow up on what another starship had done, and that's kind of what the Cerritos does, their second contact, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I always thought the Cerritos was a weird Miranda.
Well, the Cerritos is a California class.
Right. But the look of it. Oh, yeah. Okay. I always thought the Cerritos was kind of a weird looking, like a derivation of the Miranda class, where they just kind of pushed the saucer up some.
Sure.
And didn't have the bridge thing over top.
Right. Another one that I thought is definitely a very interesting look was the Stargazer. So Picard's Stargazer.
Mm-hmm. It's got 4 nacelles, right?
Yep, got 4. Got 2 on top and 2 on bottom. Not a super good look in my opinion. And then the nacelles are also very small, but I guess that's why it's got 4.
The Stargazer was one of those things that looked cooler, when it was a little model, because you couldn't get a good look at it. I'm like, oh man, 4 nacelles, look how sleek they look. But then when you see it, it's oh, that disc is way too big. That looks really, really terrible.
Yeah.
I do
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do the more modern Federation ships. Instead of having the rounded nacelles, I like that they have the rectangular nacelles. It looks a lot better. Yeah. They just look nicer.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that, I think. So the last one I wanted to mention was from the Kelvin timeline, the USS Kelvin.
Oh my god, that ship is so
Dumb.
I don't want to. I don't want to cast an objective analysis here, but I don't appreciate how it looks.
I appreciate it in its uniqueness only. It is like there's no nacelles.
So it's got one nacelle, one big nacelle.
Yeah, it's basically so you flip the Enterprise, like the original Enterprise, flip it upside down so that the radar dish is on top, and then just slap a nacelle underneath instead of having the two.
One giant ass nacelle. Yeah, it's a super ugly ship. But in the Star Trek universe, especially for Federation ships, very unique in its design.
Yeah.
I think it looks cool. I like it.
You would.
It's dumb as hell, man.
It looks, I don't know why, and this doesn't mean anything in space, but it looks like it would tip over real easy.
Yep, definitely does not matter in space. All right, so those are the ones I had in mind. Do you either of you have any particular ships that aren't your main fare, your Enterprises, your Defiance, anything like that comes to mind that you really like?
I love the Miranda class. It is the best looking starship in all of the Federation, and I will die on that hill.
The Miranda class is cool. I always liked it as well. And in Birth of the Federation, it was like this little destroyer, and it was badass.
Yeah, I do kind of like the little because that's like a little weapons port that's like suspended above the saucer section.
Yeah, it's
right?
a torpedo bay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
so
a
cool
neat ship.
looking.
Yeah, I like it.
It just looks compact. Like it's,
yeah. It's nice and
so
tight.
Cool.
It has all the elements, but without being silly.
Right. I like how the nacelles are like tucked under the saucer section like that.
Yeah. That's a cool ship. What kind of ship was oh my god, 7 of 9 was on, her family was on some kind of ship that was cool, but I'm trying to remember what it was. The Raven is the name of that ship.
Is it a Fenris Ranger?
It's a Raven. Yeah, so I like the Raven.
It's like
because it's like a beefy runabout, but like it's cool because it's small. It's got a fairly simple deck plan, and it just feels like what I would want to fly around in if I had to pick a Federation ship. Just like a tiny little ship with a small crew, and it's just like it's very comfortable. It's like a little home,
Yeah. As I say, beefy runabout, I think, is a good description of the ship.
Yeah, because to be honest, like if I was just on my own, I would probably I'd hang out in a runabout.
Mm.
Oh, you know what other ship I always really liked? Man, I feel like I keep going back to original series here.
Olympic class. So the Olympic class is the one that actually saw screen time that's based on that dumb sphere model, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a science-y ship for a while, but like it looks like you took the sphere ship and the science ship and put them together and made the Olympic.
So dumber is what you're saying.
It doesn't look better than either.
You were saying, Rob?
Yeah, so I got this ship as a micro machine before I had even ever seen the show.
Shit.
The Romulan Bird of Prey.
Oh, sure.
The Romulan Bird of Prey is all right. It's all right. The only issue I have with the Romulan Bird of Prey is how badly it pales in comparison to the Klingon Bird of Prey.
Yeah.
But they have the same name.
Klingon ships are super cool in general. What's the big... There's another Romulan ship. It's super huge. The wings are like hollowed out.
That's their Bird of Prey.
So
No. The Romulan Bird of Prey.
I'm sorry, did I say Bird of Prey? Warbird. It's called a Warbird.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so are you talking about the Dideridex class Warbird? Warship? Or
the big green ones.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The big green ones with the alien xenomorph head.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Dideridex.
Yes.
Also, I think the Romulan Bird of Prey shape is cool. I think the fucking paint job is stupid.
Oh, come on, it's got a bird on the bottom.
Exactly.
Dude, the Micro Machine version of it that I got had that bird painted on the bottom.
Hell yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
I had that same set of Micro Machines.
I think I did too, actually.
And the gold set, which were like the same models, but cast in like this weird gold plastic.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
or it was either
Fancy
gold or silver.
motherfucker.
But yeah, it was like it was there. Ferengi ships can look pretty cool sometimes.
Yeah, they're not terrible actually.
They're cool because they look like they might go the other way, but they actually go like point first.
Sure.
Are we gonna talk about the worst ships because Cardassian every day?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're terrible.
They're the worst. I do not like how they look. I do not like how they fly. I do not like how doofy they look like when they shoot stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't look good.
You know what else looked really goofy? The original series shuttlecraft.
Oh yeah, the initial TNG ones were really really dumb looking too.
They didn't look much better.
No, they're like flying rectangles.
Yeah, Voyager's got the Type 4s or whatever. The swoop back shuttles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cardassian ones are terrible. They have that like stupid bridge that sticks up and then got the fork in the back. Just terrible.
Wait, am I? Oh, wait, the Romulan bird of prey with the wings that are up for no fucking reason?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that ship is dumb as hell. What the hell?
Oh, come on,
I was
man.
thinking of a different ship. They have another ship? No, they have another ship that is between the bigger... Oh, no, God. Ugh. Oh, God, no, that ship is awful. The paint job's the only good part of that ship.
Oh,
No, the Romulans have a ship that's a little bigger than that one, but not quite the Romulan size. That looks kind of like that, but better. What the fuck is the name of that ship?
don't know. They have like a science vessel that's.
Why is it sticking up like that? Ah, God, I hate it.
How did you feel about that big old mining barge that they used in the Kelvin timeline?
Oh, so
least
pointy.
that-
So
It's
pointy.
At least it had like a reason, right? Like at least
Romulan-
it looked that way for a reason.
I guess. Romulan
Yeah,
ships
what
in
is
general just look super weird.
This thing, it's a Romulan scout ship. Yeah, the Romulan scout ship is what it's called. That thing looks cool, and that's what I thought was the bird of prey, but that is not the bird of prey. That one actually looks cool, unlike the bird of prey.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's like also referred to basically as the science ship as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But it's okay, though. The bird of prey is so ugly that it cloaks, so you don't have to see it.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our potpourri segment. Any final thoughts from you guys?
No, that'll do me.
Rob?
No, nothing else.
All right. Well, we will catch you guys next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Captain's Log Supplemental. You can follow us on Twitter at PodCLS or send us hate mail at podcls3@gmail.com.